Hi, everyone. Happy New Year. Wow, we made it through 2020. Can you imagine? Here we are, 2021. I'm just like, where did the year go? And yet so much happened. So much happened. I hope that you had an amazing New Year's Eve, feeling connected and maybe going inside and reflecting on the year that just went by and what you'd like to let go and what you'd like to call in. I wish you all a year full of inspiration and full self-expression and your fires being lit and much magic and gratitude. I really hope your 2021 is sensational. So today is the 10th interview. It's amazing. I'm really excited. And these interviews are, well, the reason I created them is to bring women to you, to my community, and to show off women basically who light other people's fires in their lives, who really stand in their power, who are embodied, and who are self-expressed, the three pillars of Inner Fire Women. And my guest today is definitely that. She is a powerhouse. She is someone who's very determined and who brings really that spark into everything that she does. She was born here in Montreal, and yet she moved to Qatar when she was 6 and experienced and lived in many different cultures that have shaped her. She also was brought up with 2 brothers in a place where girls weren't valued the same way or as much. And that also has had an impact and has shaped her and inspired her to show up in the world the way that she does. And she also teaches yoga and Pilates, and that's how she's in service in the world. And so I'd love to welcome Mars Al Mubarak to the screen. Hi, Mars.
Hello. Hey.
Thank you. Hi. Thank you so much for being here.
It's my pleasure. Thank you so much for hosting me. This is really exciting.
It is, right? On the first day of the year, it's really fun to connect and talk about themes that affect our everyday lives and how we can, bring that to create change, because that is our theme today, creating change.
Exactly.
And more specifically, creating change from bringing different forms of movement and correlating that to what's going on inside and then how we show up in this life of ours.
Exactly. So, how we can externalize what's inside into the physical body and then into our day-to-day life.
Yes. And you seem to really hone in on that. Like it seems to be your nugget, just like today you were saying, I started my day, went for a run in the cold, did my yoga practice, like, I needed that,
It's sort of my philosophy of life, and it's sort of my, I guess, my grounding, what I always go back to. So on like a given bad day, I use either my body in a way to get me out of it. So whether it's movement practice, whether it's a run, whatever it is, or it could be a meditation, but generally my meditation will always have to do with, well, how am I feeling in my vessel? And what that feeling in my vessel means on a mental, emotional, psychosomatic level. And that's my like question of the day in general.
Wow, it's kind of like you're tuning in, you check in with the body, from what I understand. It's like this, how you fine tune everything.
It's like an antenna. I think of the body as an antenna, and it's a super intelligent antenna that we've disregarded a lot in our day-to-day life. And I think like the life that we've come to, we very much value the intellect, which 100%, I mean, the intellect is there for a reason, but the body is also super, super intelligent. And I think it's an antenna, and it's sort of the gross that helps us arrive to the more subtle, if that makes sense. Yeah.
Hmm.
So that's why I like to tune into it, because it sort of guides me on like the vibration of the rest of the day, I want to say. Like the
Mm.
the kind of thing.
Yeah, I very much believe in that, in
Yeah.
like setting that vibration for the
Yeah.
day. Yeah. Because if we don't, we're kind of on default and there it is, all sorts of things happen. And then we're like, what is this happening? But there wasn't a moment of connecting and intention. And yeah, and definitely, as we both really believe in, that movement is life, like how we move,
Exactly.
we relate. So you said something so wonderful in the article that I read, that you wrote for which magazine was it again?
So he's actually my athletic therapist, Kenny Spracklin. He started a magazine in early on in the when quarantine started in the pandemic. So back in March, April. So it's Spracklin magazine. There's 3 issues, and he interviews people from all walks of life about like really exciting things. He's like a real adventure seeker kind of person, and so he interviews different kinds of people with things like that. And I encourage everyone to check it out because there's brilliant stories in all of the issues.
Oh,
So
wow.
Spracklin magazine.
Well, there are many other issues that I'm like, oh, I'm going to take a moment to, yeah, check them out.
Yeah.
But I definitely wanted to focus on yours, for this interview. But yeah, that article, um, you know, let's talk about it because it really touched me so profoundly. I mean, the story of yours is unique, to move to Qatar at like 6. That's a very sensitive age to have such a huge move. And then, the how you took that and then decided to go to a refugee camp. Do you want to talk about it? Like what that process was for you?
So it's really interesting because most people, when I kind of tell them my life story, they're always like, "Oh my God, this is so exciting! This is so different! This is so cool!" But in our case, like as third culture kids, if we call us that, it's the norm. Like everyone that was in my grade were people that were like me. So they could have been people from France whose parents were transferred to like Total in the Middle East, so they ended up there. It could have been like. Uh, a Lebanese Canadian who same thing was shifted there. It could have been someone from Senegal who was it. So I grew up with third culture kids. So that experience actually for me is the norm. So when people tell me, yeah, I was born in the city and I grew up in the city and for most of my life I've lived in the city, that's actually the what? For me, that's actually weird because it's not what I grew up with. Um, my normal is a different kind of normal. Um, but that being said, the I think I mentioned it in the article where I guess as a third culture kid where it's also different is I have Iraqi parents, born in Canada. I moved to Qatar where I went to a French school. So there was no cohesion, like nothing interrelated with the next. Whereas like a French person was still a French person born in France, and then they moved to Qatar and they went to a French school. So they may not have had as many variables in their story. I mean, they have their own, but in like in the case of my brothers and I, we had so many variables. So it turned into if I ever said I was Canadian, people would be like, "Can you stop kidding around? You're Iraqi." But then when I went to Iraqis and I said I was Iraqi, they're like, "You're the little Canadian." So you grow up in the sense of you have no idea who you are. And then I mentioned this in the story too, where one day I came home from a cultural school and I cried because the Egyptians knew they were Egyptians, the Lebanese knew they were Lebanese, the French knew they were French, and I apparently was nothing. So
Wow.
it for me created a feeling of, well, I have to make sense of my own world in my own way,
Mhm.
that nobody can define it more for me, no culture, no thing. And my mom had a beautiful answer too. She was like, you're a child of both worlds, so you can create your own mix and you can take whatever you want, and that's even more beautiful. And I think that sort of initiated that interest in culture, in people, in how you define yourself, that kind of thing, and then leading eventually to me moving to Palestine.
Yes. So did you move to Palestine to do the project, or did you move there for another reason and then you decided to do the project?
I moved there for another reason. So I had done after college. I was a Concordia, and then after Concordia, I did I think it was TEFL, Teach English as a Second Language, certificate. And I kind of wanted to go back to my roots to where the area of the world that I was from. And so I wanted to go back to Palestine, and I interviewed with Teach for Palestine. And so I was actually going there to teach English, but also because I spoke Arabic, they needed somebody to be like a coordinator between like the different refugee camps, the villages, things like that. So my original job was there as coordinator / teacher. But then, honestly, I don't even remember what it is that made me decide to want to start the swimming project. I was a swimmer. I loved swimming. I love being in water. I'm a little fish. And something clicked and said, why don't you do that? And when I emailed the school that Teach for Palestine, they were like, yes, please do. That's an amazing idea. The only thing is we don't have the funds. So you have to, you'd have to what's it called?
Like fundraise? Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. And then what's so interesting about this? Well, first of all, yes, like I find that the best inspirations just appear. It's like the universe just dropping in the magic, right? And we're just like, oh, I'm inspired. I'm going to create something. I love those moments. And what I found interesting that I read in the article is that, so here you are fundraising and the families are not allowing the girls to attend. They're like, why don't you do it for the boys?
Take the boys. So I had fundraised. I got to Palestine, started. And then so we're kickstarting the project. I'm interviewing, I was looking for the pool, looking for drivers, looking for whatever. And then we decided on this one specific, I mean, there's only so much money we could raise, and there was only so many girls we could take. So we decided on this one specific refugee camp. And then I think we had enough money for about 10 to 13 girls, something like that. So we decided that we had to pick a specific age range, but we also picked specific girls who had the potential to eventually possibly get scholarships later on. So there was a very specific selection process of why them and why her and stuff like that. So when I started to contact the families, some of them were super grateful. Not to say that many were very, very, and they went out of their way to thank me. But you had the handful that would be like, but this is not for girls. Girls aren't meant to be in swimming pools. Let's give it to the boys. Because and I don't think it's so much a question of valuing the boys over the girls. I think it's more, they expect more of the boys. You know what I mean? Like it's a very distinctive, because I mean, they love their daughters just as much as they love their sons. You can't, but it's more of an expectation. At the end of the day, he's gonna provide. So he's the one should get the opportunity to do and so and so and so. Whereas the expectation of her is to eventually become a wife, a mother, and that sort of thing. Which, I mean, it's not a bad thing, but if that's your choice. But for them, that choice was imposed upon them.
Got it. Yeah.
So the boy was expected to be like adventurous and boisterous and go explore and figure it out, because the expectation of him was that he would one day have to do that for his family.
Right. Go out.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Wow. Provide. Yeah. Wow. It's a different way of life, a different perspective on.
Yeah. And I mean, and don't forget, like, not to get it, they are secluded off, right? So they're definitely more traditional than most of the world. Like, they're not as exposed to the rest of the world we are. Like, so they're not the best representation of the whole Middle East. It's just, I always say this, it's like time stopped over there. It's a very interesting place to be. But yeah, so generally they have those very traditional gender roles set in space. So when they wanted for the boys, it's just because for them it was expected that the boy should be an athlete, should be active, whereas the girl should be more docile, more kind, more quiet.
And even with this perception of life and this imposed way of being on girls, you still managed to get the project done. You still got 13. Yeah.
No, I may have slightly used guilt. I was like, I'm going to get my way. I may have guilted people into letting me take the daughters to the pool. I may have. I'm not even going to lie. I remember because the project ended up getting so delayed. I was supposed to start it in October, and it didn't start before December. And because the parents kept sort of it's this very Arabic thing, they say inshallah all the time, like God willing, God willing, God willing. So every time I'd be like, so would you guys approve? Can I get your approval for to take them to the pool? They'd be like, inshallah, inshallah. One day I lost it. I went to all of them, or the ones that were sort of being a little more difficult. I was like, listen, I fundraised from Canada to be able to do this project. Okay. I told people that it would start in October. It would end by December, January, because I think it was a 3-month project. I now look like an idiot in front of all the people that fundraised for this project. And so I look like a thief. That's for one. Number two, I wanted to go home for Christmas that year, but I can't go home because I'm still working on this project. So if you're not going to let me take your daughters to the pool, I'm going to give the money back and I'm going to go home. I said that.
Yeah.
It worked. It worked.
Way to be in your power. That's amazing.
Yeah, it worked. I was like, you give me my money back or I'm going home.
Wow. And then they just jumped on the occasion.
They jumped on it. Like it's kind of like it's where if you live in Paris and the Eiffel Tower's there, so you never go and see it. So in their head, she's here. She's going to do it, whatever. But then finally, when push came to shove and then that opportunity was going to be taken away from them, from their girls and from their boys, they were kind of like, okay, fine.
And then you got to see the magic. You got to see the impact that you had on these girls, and for them to be, so being in a bathing suit was a big thing, right? Also,
it was, yeah. So we had to get the university. We ended up hosting the classes at the pool and of the University of Nablus. They had to, so it had to be, I think, on a Saturday morning or something when there wasn't any classes, and they had to wall off the pool, and they had to make sure that there were no like men janitors or anything in the space.
Wow.
Yeah. So it was like super, and I had to guarantee from the parents that I would keep a lookout, that I would make sure no boys. I think if I remember, well, in any case, it's a setup that they have, because when there were like swimming competitions for the girls teams, they would have to seal off the space in any case. So it was kind of like an infrastructure that they had already set.
Right.
Yeah.
And so what do you believe, like what did you see was the impact of these girls getting to do this physical activity together and in the safe space with you? Like how did that impact?
I think two main things, but that are very subtle, that you might not be able to, two main things whose impact was not so big at the moment, but that might reverberate a little bit later in their lives. For one, the fact that someone fought for them to get this opportunity, I think was kind of a big deal, that like, no, someone insisted that they get it and not their brother. That's one thing. And then the second thing is maybe like fighting a fear. I'm telling you, most of these girls had never been in, because I think the West Bank, my geography might be wrong, but I don't think they have direct access to any body of water except for maybe the Dead Sea. I'm trying to think, but I don't think they do. You'd have to look at a map, but I don't think so. The Red Sea, maybe? I can't remember. But they've never been in a body of water bigger than a bathtub. I think one girl in her lifetime had gone swimming. So going in a pool was terrifying. Whereas for me, I think I was tossed in the pool the first time I was a day old. It was I was like, yeah, go figure it out, swim. They were terrified of going into the pool. Once we finally got them into the pool, they wouldn't let go of the edge. They wouldn't. It was. Oh my God! Now that I think about it, I'm getting really nostalgic. It was endearing. Like they wouldn't let go. I don't think we ever got them as far as the deep end, but they did let go and they made it into the middle, and then they came back. Which, it again is this idea of fighting a fear through movement. This is the unknown. This is an experience that they've never been through. Their moms or dad, their safety net, no one's around but this foreign English teacher and the swimming coach. So everything about it is really insecure, is really unsafe, is really scary. And like letting go of the edge was like letting go of that safe space that you've always known, So I think the impact is more later on, maybe subconsciously. Like I can't speak on a very conscious level, but maybe subconsciously somewhere in life that'll represent them having to let go of the edge of the comfort that they've always known.
Oh, totally. I totally believe that. I feel like, first of all, they got that vibrational imprint of, like you said, you fighting for them and knowing that they too can have, you know, great experiences, something new, something for them, and then physically having that experience. And like you said, that I'm 100% sure that, yeah, that has had, well, 100% sure. I strongly feel that must have had an impact. It reminds me of a moment when my dad had signed up for a swimming competition, and the day before, I heard that there was 2 girls that were really, really good that were participating. And I said to my dad, I was like, I'm not doing it. Because what's the point? Like, I'm not going to win the really good. And my dad was like, you sign up for something, you do it. No matter if you think you're going to win or not, you complete it. And I did that swimming competition, and I never forgot that moment. I even won one of the races. So, you know, that was a big thing for me. So yeah, definitely.
And see, I actually really like that. So your dad's thing wasn't, and that was also one of the things about like the article and all this project, is it wasn't about winning. Like nobody wanted them to get in competitions. Your dad didn't expect you to win. It was where can you, my friend Marie-Pierre, our teacher at Wanderlust, always says this, where can you flirt with your edge? So in pushing you to go do the swim meet, and then the girls in being pushed to let go of the edge, you were pushed to flirt with an edge, with a boundary that you had, a fear of losing, a fear of letting go of your comfort. You were pushed to do it through this exercise. And then that's where I believe that we should rename it from exercise. And I mean, there are sports, but just exercise for the sake of exercise, because you want to burn calories and you want to chisel abs. We should reframe it into any form of movement, hockey, Pilates, yoga, that will lead you to flirting with those boundaries that you have in your own head, and seeing how you can sort of clear out the cobwebs.
Yes.
So there, you know, you went, you did it mainly. Yeah, you won, great. But you also told yourself it didn't matter. Who cares? I'm just going to go push myself. Whatever that gets me, whatever the result is, doesn't matter. But I went and I challenged myself. And you learn something much bigger than just winning at one of the like races.
Yeah. Like showing up and doing the movement. I really like this. I never thought of it that way. Like I thought of it as a mental process, because, you know, my father said, no, you're still going to come in and you're still going to do it. But no, it was the actual doing it, the showing up and the physical aspect of it that informed me, you know. And then there was, you know, a result, whatever that result was.
Yeah, exactly.
Showing up and doing it, that was transformative.
Exactly. It's actually that transitional phase. It's that place in the middle of you actually going through the process that led to this result, you know, and then we forget about that. And I think that's what sports are. That's what exercise is. It's being in that transition, and what you learned in that transition, what changed for you in that transition that eventually led to a result. And whether that result is fighting a fear, winning a swim meet, or building those chiseled abs, great. But it really is what's happening in here that's what matters.
Yeah, definitely. You said something when we were talking interview, you said, you know, using the physical practice to, like, that's what you said. What did you learn from your practice? No matter what the practice is, you know, you said, yeah, what did you learn from your practice? And I like that.
Yeah. So to make it like a process of awareness, you know, so on a given day when you're feeling really, really tired, and you went to a yoga class still, you decided, okay, you know what, I need to get out of my house, I'm going to go to a yoga class. You have the most lethargic practice ever. Okay. But you still did it. You can either berate yourself and tell yourself, oh my God, I had such a really bad practice. Or you can observe, you can be like, well, maybe today learn, like take mental notes. Well, maybe on a day like this, I actually should choose not to practice. I should just allow myself to have a rest day. Or I can realize that on a day like today, what my 100% was simply showing up on the mat. But then tomorrow, my 100% will be that I can get into scorpion, and I can jump forward and I can jump back. And that you recognize that your body has a natural ebb and flow by taking note of the states of your body, your mental language, what you're speaking to yourself, and the outcome again. Am I making sense?
Yeah. I'm thinking of well, the quote here that you said, like, I have this belief that the body's a canvas for the mind and that movement is a metaphor for life. The first part I feel is really like, wow. I'm left like, wow. I'm like, I love that image. Like that the body informs the mind. It's not the mind that's informing the body. Like, can you talk more about that?
Yeah, so I think it goes both ways, definitely. So in the sense that I think actually, wait, hold on. If I'm thinking about it, I think in my head, no, it's the body, it's the mind that's informing the body, but in the sense that whatever's happening in here is very much expressed in here. So someone who's positioned like this, shoulders rolled forward, hunched in, oh, like there, when I see them, my first thought is this is the person who's guarding, who's guarded. You know, like it's very, very guarded, and that's why they stand here because their entire life they're guarding somewhere, something in their body. But then you can start to open them up, and maybe in opening up their physical body, you've opened up something in their mind. So it's a two-way street in that sense.
Right.
And that's where like it's a canvas is that it's expressed in here, but then you can change the canvas and then change the mind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you had that experience yourself with backbend.
Yes.
Yeah.
With headstands. Backstands have always been my
Oh, sorry. Yes. So
yeah.
headstands. Yeah.
Headstands.
Do you want to talk about that experience? I thought that was really,
yeah. It's an example I actually use a lot. So I've been doing yoga for about 10, 11 years. And I started Ashtanga about 4 or 5 years ago. So I'm an Ashtangi mostly. And at the end of the Ashtanga practice, if you haven't done it before, you end with like a closing practice. And one of the postures is headstand. I would want to, like, sorry to be crude, but I would want to piss myself every time I was getting inching closer to the closing practice because I knew I would have to headstand. And to a point where sometimes what I would do is I would make sure that the teacher wasn't looking at me, and I would like do a quick headstand, tuck my knees in, and then get out of it, and then go into shavasana, just so that I wouldn't be pushed into it. Like it's something about being upside down terrified me. And then I started my Pilates practice. My body got stronger and stronger and stronger. And there's a lot of different equipment in Pilates, and a lot of stuff that you do in supported inversions. But for some reason, I could do the supported inversions, but there was always a sense of anxiety. And one day I asked myself, I'm like, Mars, all the things that you do, you know, you've traveled to war zones, you've lived in 5 different countries, you know, you're a pretty adventurous spirit. What is it about inversions that scare you so much? And again, it was one of those sort of intuitive answers. It was like the idea of being upside down, the idea of things not happening in a certain order, and I guess not happening in a sense that's very secured, very prepared, very protocoled, being upside down, just didn't sit well with me. I've always needed a certain, as adventurous as I was, I've always felt that I needed a certain categorical safety net. And being upside down took that safety net out from underneath me. And in processing that, in trying to see where in life I was holding on to safety nets and letting those safety nets go, I actually managed. I think a week in, I was up in a headstand. No problem. And today I do 7 different kinds of headstands. And like a champ, if I do say so myself.
So really breaking those boundaries with movement. But there was like it's like you said, there was there was an insight, and that informed, and that shifted, and that shifted again. So it's like this.
There's a conversation. It's not one or the other. It's one and the other, and one influences the other. It's a chicken and egg situation through and through.
Yes, and I completely agree. I've had so many, as a dancer, so many moments where, depending on injuries, depending on where I'm blocked a certain period in my life, like blocked at a certain, in a place in my body at a certain period in my life where I'm experiencing something that I might be resisting or having a hard time with, and that it's reflecting what's going on, how I don't want to open up or completely, it's a very fascinating thing to look at the body and see, where is it that it's not moving, or where is it really flexible? And that in my life, I'm really flexible. Like, where's that correlation, you know? And
Exactly. Where is there a lot of stiffness, and what does that represent in your life that you might have stiffness? You know, like you might have super bendy hips, but then your neck doesn't turn. So maybe creatively you're very like open or whatever, but you never want to see different perspectives, you know? And I think everyone has their own analysis. You don't have to have one analysis for everyone, but it's what it means to you, I
yeah,
think.
yeah.
And the thing is at the end of the day, we're all born with a body, you know, where we've all got one, as different as they may be, as versatile as they may be. We're all born with this antenna. Now, what we do with it is our choice, and how we read it is our choice. Because at the end of the day, it's our own vessel. But I truly believe that in building a relationship with this vessel, we become embodied and we become empowered.
I love that. And that's, for me, a very powerful being, someone who is embodied, then they're empowered, and then they can be in the full self-expression. Because like you said, if there's a holding, if there's stiffness, if there's a limitation, a non-willingness to explore, then yeah, it's going to affect being in our full self-expression and powerful or free, or it's so true. And I mean, there's so many, what's the word? So many, not like researches on this, like how movement affects the brain. And when we actually learn to move differently, it creates new pathways in the brain. And therefore we have new perspective, and that, like, yeah. And like you have different practices, like you do Pilates, you do yoga, you go running.
I make it a point. So it was actually a realization I had a couple of years ago, or I mean, maybe not even that long ago, but we say movement affects the mind or whatever. But then when you notice people of different practices, so like a hockey player versus a basketball player versus a yogi versus a dancer versus a gymnast, they all end up, I mean, at the end of the day, we're all going to end up being a product of the culture that we're part of. And I also mean the exercise that we choose will also be a part of that culture. Mm-hmm. It has such a huge impact on the personality and attitude that they have in life. So like a hockey player who has to constantly make split-second decisions, whether or not they have a game plan, they're constantly in a moment having to decide, well, what do I do now? And you'll notice their personality types that are more fonceur, like more like, that's it, this is what I'm doing, I'm going for that. They're also, I mean, in a great way, they're also team players, because how I react will affect how he acts, and how he acts. So in general, in life, you'll notice that they're really team players, which is great. There's goods and there's bad. But if you're always sticking to the same form of movement, then you're not exploring different facets of yourself. So where they're constantly upward regulating, maybe a dancer or a yogi who's the opposite. You have to calculate when you lift your leg. You have to calculate on a specific count when you lift your arm. When you do this, are you in rhythm? Are you in? Nah. So are you breathing when you're stepping forward? Are you stepping forward heavily? So you're actually the opposite. You're super in control. So you might actually end up becoming someone who's constantly processing and deciding and indecisive, and because everything has to happen within a very specific parameters, let's say. So what good can you bring in intermingling the two, not just for your body, but also from your perspective of the world and your interaction of the world? So can't a dancer bring in a little bit more of that explosiveness? Wouldn't that do her or him good in doing that? Versus a hockey player, wouldn't him taking an extra split second to make a decision, could that not impact him properly as well? So I think we were talking about this earlier, where I believe our body is the microcosm of the macrocosm that is nature. And just like if I'm no farmer, so don't quote me on this, but as far as I understand, if you're constantly farming the land in the exact same way, so you're always harvesting tomatoes and tomatoes and tomatoes, eventually the land says, I'm tired of harvesting tomatoes, but the truth is I don't even know how to harvest anything else, so I'm dead. I think the body does the same thing. If you're constantly moving it and working your brain in the same way, well, eventually it gets tired, but it also doesn't know how to do anything else. And that's when you get stuck. Whereas if you change it, if you give it different approaches, different ways of thinking, different perspectives, different interactions, different ways to play, you keep it creative. You keep it what's that word? Elastic?
Yeah.
So you
Yeah.
keep elastic, yeah.
Yeah, like flexible, and there's adaptable.
Adaptable. And you keep your mind adaptable.
Yes. Like, I know when you said dancer, I was like, oh man, because I understand why people don't want to move outside their regular movement practice, no matter what that looks like for them, because it can be really scary when it's not something that kind of energy and way of moving, that it can be uncomfortable or scary. I know for myself, when I started taking break dance classes, oh, wow, what a whole other world. I mean, I've been dancing since I was very small, and yet I did ballet, so all the lines are perfect, everything's like calculated, whereas all of a sudden here I am doing crazy moves that you need to control momentum. You need to have momentum, control momentum, and not only that, but it's all improvisation, and on
Exactly.
top of it, it's about showing yourself off. Like,
Yes.
it was like layer after layer of something that makes me so uncomfortable. And
Comfortable.
like, look at me.
It's like no, it's exactly, but it's good for you. It's a good thing that
It was.
you develop that. And I started training with a personal trainer a couple of months ago, and like training, like he's got me doing deadlifts and overhead squats, and he actually, like, one of the days he was like, listen, I've been catering to you for far too long. I'm gonna stop now. And he's like, I'm done. He's like, everything you do is but this, but that, but you want to go do a chin up or whatever, and every second of your pull, you're going super slowly, and you're just go. He literally, and I realized that in my head, that doesn't even make sense. What do you mean, just go? Like, because we're so taught that, like, your SI and your pelvis and your arm and your shoulder have to constantly. He's like, I tell my other clients, be more controlled. I need you to be less controlled and just go. And I remember thinking that, like, the reason I never did is because if ever I went too quick through something, I would get nauseous. So, like, if I was trying to go through 2, 3 pull-ups in a row, it's not that I got tired, it's that I got nauseous, because I think that my nervous system was just not used to that kind of, like, go, 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 don't think about it, you know? So it's like you said, it's building those new pathways, that it's growing pains.
Yes. Oh, that's so well said.
Yeah.
And you said earlier, like this, like flirting. Was it flirting with your edges? Something like that.
Flirting with your edge, Marie-Pierre's quote. Yeah.
Yeah, I like that, because I believe that's how we create change, is by, you go and you do the uncomfortable, like just doing it, and letting go of that control, but as you keep flirting with that, as I kept flirting with breakdance, sometimes I would let go and just show off. And then it felt really good to just, not show off with the ego, but show off like I'm fully self-expressed.
Exactly. You're allowed to shine, and you shining doesn't take away from anyone else's shine, but you yourself are also allowed to put yourself forward,
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's a big thing for me. That's a big thing for
Yeah.
me. So yeah, changing it through movement, through showing up and doing it. Oh, Mars, this is so exciting. I love what you're doing. I love it.
I'm glad you like it.
Well, speaking of practicing, would you like to guide us in, some
Yes, I would
movement?
love to. Okay, wait, hold on a
So
second. I'm actually going to reposition you guys. So I know we were just talking just a moment about being a little more sort of free flowy, but I kind of had an intention behind the movement, and obviously you guys take it, leave it. It's up to you. But I want to do 2 classical Surya Namaskaras, so sun salutation A's. And what I want to do is the first round of it to simply make it an observational round. No cues, no nothing. Just notice how different little aspects of your body, your movement, your breath, and explore what that might mean to you. I mean, it's a 1-minute process, but see if in that minute, observe and notice what that might mean to you. And in the second round, what can you bring to it? What can you change? What can you adapt for this practice to be able to I want to say support you. I want to say bring about the change that you might want in your life. That kind of thing. And the adaptability, see it how you will.
Okay, let's see. I'm going to write that down. Okay, so I'm going to put you fully on the screen.
Can we see my head? I know I'm not very tall, but I think my head's gone missing. Perfect. Okay. So mat, carpet, any sort of space that you might have to move in. Stand with your feet parallel, hip width apart, big toes together, whatever feels right for you in this moment. Start by taking a couple of deep breaths in and out through your nose. Again, simply being the observer. So without trying to bring any kind of change, can you become aware of the quality of your breath? And by quality, I mean length, depth, width. The interaction and differences between inhales and exhales. Become aware of the positioning of your body, your posture. It's not good, it's not bad, it just is. And then finally, become aware of how your feet connect to the mat, to the earth beneath it. And just ask yourself what the different qualities of those might represent about you, your personality, your being, your expression, and your participation in the world. On your next inhale, lift your arms up. And again, being aware of the fluidity, the quality of the movement. When you exhale, forward fold. Inhale and extend the chest. Plant your hands down. Exhale, simply step your left foot back, lower the knee. On your inhale, lift your arms up. Exhale here. Also being aware of all these different factors. Take another cycle of breath. So inhale. Full exhale. Breathe in. Exhale, plant your hands down. Step your right foot back. Both of your knees on the floor. Inhale here. Exhale, take your time. Lower your chest between your hands. Inhale, little lift of the heart. Exhale, push yourself back. Downward facing dog. Down dog is probably one of the asanas that we repeat the most in any yoga practice. So it's the perfect time to develop that proprioception, that awareness of the body in space. And then again, tied into what that might mean for you on a mental, psychological, emotional level. How are your limbs, your extremities rooted into the floor? What part of your body might overly be working right now, and what part of you might not be? If down dog is not a comfortable pose for you, how is that being reflected in the quality of your breath? How is that being reflected in your mental chatter? Inhale and lift your right leg up once again. Exhale, step your right foot forward next to the right thumb, lower the left knee down. Inhale and lift your arms. Exhale, both your hands down to the mat, and this time you step your left foot, your back foot forward next to the right. Inhale, lift the chest. Exhale and fold. Push down into your feet. Inhale and lift up. Arms down by your side. Do one more cycle. And again, bring about those little nuggets of awareness, of enlightenment that you may have found in round one. And how can you implement them in round two? And that might even be just bringing a little more awareness in the transitional moments. So not rushing from point A to point B, seeing if you can savor the moments in between the two. So feet rooted down, that is your connection to the earth, how you determine your presence in this lifetime. And inhale, lift your arms. Folding at the hips, exhale, let everything go and fold. Inhale, extend the chest, opening the heart. Exhale, plant the hands and step your right foot back. Lower the back knee down. Rooting down into the earth, inhale, lift your arms up. And notice how your legs are a foundation. And when they're strong, when they're rooted, your upper body, your heart, your creative self that reaches out is more apt, more able to move freely. Inhale. Exhale, plant your hands back down. Step your left foot back on your knees. Hands rooted now. So now your arms have become a way for you to firm your presence, your heart. That's what your arms are. Exhale, lower down, bending your elbows. Inhale and lift the chest. Exhale and push your sit bones back, downward facing dog. So we spoke about how the body was reflecting or what the mental chatter of the previous down dog was when it was maybe uncomfortable in the body. Now, can you do one thing? Can you change the mental chatter? Can you change what you're saying to yourself? Something obviously more positive. And notice how it's going to change the quality of your movement. So where a difficult asana, a difficult position may have been triggering negative mental chatter, what if we change the mental chatter to influence the asana, to influence the movement? Inhale and look forward. Exhale, step your left foot next to your left thumb. Lower your right knee down. Inhale and lift the arms. Exhale, plant your hands. Lift your back knee. Step your right foot forward. Inhale, extend the heart. Exhale, fold. Press into your feet. Inhale, rise. Arms down by your side. I hope this little mini movement practice brought something to you, to your day. Even if it's like a little gem, that's more than enough.
Thank you.
Thank
That
you.
felt so good.
Oh, yeah.
That felt so good. It felt, yeah, I'm like, it felt so good. It did, because I didn't feel like I had to force through these challenging positions, even though they're challenging. Like there was an invitation of non-performance. And so that felt amazing to me. I could just be, because the invitation was to observe, and not, the invitation wasn't like, go deeper, or have a, be more precise, be more like, that wasn't the invitation. It was just like, you observe. And then after that, what do you want to invite in? What do you want to change? And I loved what you said. You said, bring something, like, can you change the chatter? Yeah. And then more specifically, something positive, of course.
Because you could change the chatter to, oh, you suck.
Totally. I love that you made that specific, because then I'm like, yeah, okay, positive. And what came up for me is that I have very little flexibility in my my ankles. And I'm someone who is very aware of my body. I mean, I studied movement. I'm a certified movement analyst, et cetera, et cetera. Like, I've done a lot of different forms. It was so amazing for you to have that invitation. Like, that just, I dropped in. I was like, oh, my ankles are, not flexible. And that always bothered me. And then when you said, oh, how can you change the chatter and invite something positive? And then I was like, oh, well, I'm not actually quite sure what I would say to release.
So then that's where I would say, that's where you can start thinking on a much broader spectrum. So then it goes from the very obvious thing to speaking more positively. Maybe then you start to strategize. So your ankles aren't flexible. Maybe you're never going to be the person that whose heels touch down. But that being said, where in your body can you then find the space without cheating, without bailing out, without injuring yourself? But how can you strategize in life, in this posture, to get a little bit more range, more space in your asana if you can't get it from your ankles?
Oh, I
You know what I
love
mean? So if say someone who's super gumby, super bendy, tends to like collapse into their poses, that's fantastic. That's beautiful. You know, you're a super bendy person, great. But then where in life can you then invite a little more strength? So now you're honing in your content without losing that range of motion. So then where in your life can you invite a little bit more, or in your movement, like it could also be that like obvious, that thing, like where in your movement practice can you invite that extra space? And then, so that's just like you're doing mental math. That mental math translates into other areas of your life. Because now instead of thinking from such a limited range, oh, well, my ankles are not flexible. You're thinking now, okay, but then how do I solve this problem? So you've gone from a problem-seeking mind to a, what do you call it? Solution-seeking.
I like this invitation. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Because it, you know, in life, we might be limited somewhere in somehow in terms of wanting to go a certain direction or wanting something. And yet how can we find it? It's a nice,
you know what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah. I thought to myself also since I didn't know right away what to say, I tried on a few things like I'm flexible, I release, and I was seeing, and it did have, I was testing out things and it did have a mini effect, but I also thought like that it's okay to just observe and that maybe the insight will come, that maybe my ankles will tell me.
Exactly. I worked on headstands for 2 years. For 2 years until I got that headstand. Two. And I was a gymnast and ballet dancer.
Wow. Yes.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, exactly. It might not be instant, but in the staying curious and like you said, finding if it's somewhere else that we find it in the body, or just
being receptive to other answers, staying open to different kinds of solutions than the ones that you expect.
Connected to this question that is on the screen that you said, like, what did you learn from your movement practice?
There you go.
Yeah, that really stayed with me when you said that. I was like, oh, I want to keep that when I do. Yeah, it's wonderful. Imagine after because like you said, a lot of us go to do exercise to feel good physically. We go and we're like, okay, got burned those calories, woohoo, But what if the question is, what did I learn from it?
Yeah. Like it's obviously the feel good aspect of it. Great. Like it's better than you going and thinking like, oh, I hate this. Like, great. Even if you came out and you just had a little endorphin rush, that's fantastic. But can you start noticing the little subtle changes, like in becoming more explosive or more open in that simple dance, hip hop class? Where did that reflect in your life? Where is me being more explosive in the setting with my trainer gonna come out in the way I live my life daily? Where is me feeling stronger in my body? Because at the end, this is our home. And I think that was one of the main points of the article that I wrote, is where the world, I mean, technically speaking, for me, the world is my home. But I never had this feeling of this land is mine, this is where I'm from. So I had to make my body a home. So, and how can you make this a home that you feel safe in, that you feel comfortable in, that no one can tell you because you're too big or because you're too small or because you're too this, there's something wrong with you? No, it's yours. You take ownership of it. And in taking ownership of it in those different facets, in those different modules, how do you take ownership of your life?
So well said. You said this quote, like you just said it, what if instead they learn to love their bodies? So women, you say the girls, love their bodies through sport and turn them into their own private dojo and shala within a chaotic world. Like, boom. Wow. Yeah. There it is.
In conclusion, in one line.
Oh, Mars, thank you so much for
You're so welcome. I feel like we went totally over time, but it's all good.
It's all right. It flowed. It really definitely flowed. And I'm so grateful that to spend the first day of the year talking about something that lights me up and that lights you up, and that we can spark other people's fire through our conversation. Yeah. There's a lot of good nuggets in there. So thank you so much. And people
Thank you for inviting me.
You're welcome. And they can connect with you if they want, they want to ask more about this, or maybe possibly take a yoga class or Pilates class with you.
Right there, or I mean, I don't know if I'm out, but I work for Studio Myland and Enzo. So if ever, they're great studios. If anyone wants to check out my classes or any of my friends' classes, great studios.
Yes. So now it's because it used to be called, formerly known as Wonderlust, and now it's called Le Myland.
Le Studio Myland.
The Studio Myland. Wonderful.
Yeah.
And Enzo. Is that what you said?
And Enzo, yes.
Okay, great. Yeah. Wonderful. So yes, definitely an invitation to reach out to you and just even say hi and thanks for and write in the comments.
Yeah, there you go.
We'll get back to you. Wonderful.
All right. Thank you so much. It was such a pleasure to be a part of this.
Thank you.
Have a blessed first day of the year.
Same to you.
Bye.
You. Thank you so much for spending a moment with us on January 1st, 2021, and talking about, what I feel is really important is our bodies and our connection to it and how we move through life. I hope this conversation was helpful to you, and keep doing what lights your fire and expressing yourself. It is a gift to everyone around you. And if you know someone who is really showing up in your life and that you believe that having them being interviewed would bring more to the community, please reach out to me and let me know. I love meeting new people, and I definitely want to use this platform to have other women show up and shine bright. So thanks again. Share with a friend if you believe that they'll be inspired by this conversation. And I wish you, again, the most incredible new year. So take care. Mwah.